Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Close scrutiny will show that most crisis situations are opportunities to either advance or stay where you're at. Maxwell Maltz. I guess Maxwell Maltz was a thinker and also a cosmetic surgeon, which I find kind of interesting. But anyway, first, I want to say happy birthday to Vic Marginian, and I hope that he has an outstanding birthday today, and for many more. Vic, by the way, is the CEO of Titan HST, the sponsor of this show. So, for over the years, I've learned more about leading during a crisis than by the mistakes I've made than I have by the correct decisions that I may have made or fell into. And so I've been doing a lot of reading of late, and obviously, if you guys look behind me, you can see my bookshelf is full of books. And I came across a concept in project management, and I felt that we could apply this today to crisis leadership, to emergency management, to business continuity. And so I took some of the lessons. It was like something like 32 lessons of project management, and I broke it down to basically the top 15 lessons that I think will work for us, and maybe a couple little bonus ones in there as well. So the first one is immediately respond to early warning signs. And I say this in a different way. You may have heard me say this before about leaning forward into a situation, having your intelligence gathering tools always running so you can not be behind that 8 ball when something occurs. And so and that's what this is. Immediately respond to the early warning signs. When you see something, even if it's just planning for it, and it doesn't occur, that is leaning forward. And so this was going to happen before any negative event occurs. And it allows you to, again, have your team ready for this to happen. It's funny though, sometimes people don't understand that concept, and as a leader, you have to really explain to them why you're putting precautions in place here. And if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Use it. I call it a live exercise, or an impromptu drill, if you will. The second lesson is, if you can't prevent the crisis, at least contain it. And that is, we talk about the fact that wildland fires occur, or earthquakes occur, or tornadoes, and all those type of things. Hurricanes happen during, and you can't necessarily prevent some of those things. However, you can do mitigation to contain it and plan for it. And, otherwise it's going to spread and be out of control. And so that is the other one. If you cannot prevent the crisis, at least contain it. And then we've talked about this before, and it really plays into making decisions as quickly as possible. Make a decision with the information that you have. You're never going to have 100% of the information during a crisis. If you have like 60% of the information, that's great. If you have 80%, that's amazing. And make the decision based on the information that you have, but always understand that you may have to pivot from that decision that you've made. And allow yourself to have the flexibility to make the pivot. One of the things that we learned when I was serving with the Marines is the idea of being semper gumby. Although the Marine Corps, their motto is, semper fi, semper fidelis. It really is semper gumby, always flexible. And be flexible, because if you're rigid, if you think about it, it's going to snap in a storm. So if you take a look at the palm tree can bend and wave with the winds as they come in. But those big, mighty, rigid oaks snap. So be more like a palm tree. Semper gumby, always. Make a decision and be flexible to be able to pivot. Be realistic but optimistic. I call myself the pessimistic optimist, or the optimist that's pessimistic. Either way you take a look at it, right? And so when crisis happens, be very pessimistic during the crisis, but also always hope for the best, right? So plan for the worst, you're hoping for the best. And again, you're leaving yourself room to pivot during those failures. When they occur, you're going to make bad decisions, not bad decisions, but decisions that look different when you take the hindsight to them. And so understand that you are going to have to learn from those. I love this concept, right? And it comes from the idea of pilots, right? And it says never run out of altitude and airspeed as ideas and ideas at the same time. So, if you run out of airspeed and altitude, that's called crashing, right? And so do not allow yourself to crash, right? And so altitude, this relates to maintaining focus in the big picture, and it's required for leadership. Of the crisis, right? You need to have that big picture. If you get deep into the weeds, right, that's when you start losing the altitude. So stay at that 35,000 foot level of when you're taking a look at the issue. Allow your staff and allow the people in the field to do the stuff in the field. Airspeed relates to the velocity and the forces that are pushing your results forward, right? So allow that airspeed to push your results forward. And then the ideas, right, is sharing those ideas amongst yourselves inside the control room, brainstorming and having open dialogue with your team, right? Because if you start closing off and just saying, I'm making decisions, not listening to outside information, that is when you do make poor decisions necessarily because you're not allowing yourself to see the big picture of the situation. Lesson 6, face reality, right? There are some decisions and some things that are happening during a crisis, that it's the reality of it, right? Don't put a false rosy picture on things and understand where you're at so you can move forward on it. Don't blame other people. Don't blame external events for the crisis. It's your job to really take a look at this and make the decisions to be able to resolve that situation, right? The other one, lesson 7, is legal threats or reputational threats, right? What's that mean? Is that when you take a look at lawsuits and stuff that come down your way, specifically for the way you handle the crisis, it's really the suits are against against the organization's reputation, your personal reputation. So make sure that you are taking a look at this way and making sure that you're able to, I don't want to say spin it, that's not the word I'm looking for, but being able to make sure that you are doing things legally, that you're not making things worse for others, and making sure that you are able to protect your reputation during this crisis. Take ownership of communications. And this is key, right? Communications is where that you talk to the public. If you're in the public, you talk to your team. If you're working for a private organization, this is where you've seen so many mistakes in the past. Take a look at what's happening, with COVID, for instance, right now. And the fact that part of the problem that we're having with COVID is the communications coming from various different people, whether it's through your governors, whether it's through your local elected officials, whether it's through the public health, whether it's through the national, the CDC, the WHO, the president. There's all this mixed information coming out, which is really confusing things. And so you have to have a great communications plan, specifically when you're looking at crisis. That brings us into lesson 9, the 5 big crisis communications. So be prompt. You need to kill the rumors, right? You need to have a team that is looking, or a person at least, that is looking through the Twitter, the Facebook, the LinkedIn, whatever social media that's being out there. Seeing what the next door is a great one. Look through those things, and you have to kill the rumors, right? Be compassionate. Understand that other people are also going through this crisis the same way that you are, right? Understand that you have to look at this thing through a compassionate lens, right? And so if you do not look at people's feelings and what's going on, they're not going to listen to you, even if you have all the facts in the world. If you come off being a jerk, they're not going to listen to you. Be honest, right? No lying by commission, no lying by omission, right? If you don't understand what's going on, let them know you don't know what's going on, right? Now, there are sometimes in public side that we can't share information. Just be like, at this time, we can't share this information, right? Just be completely honest with that. Be informative. Answer the basic journalistic questions. And don't become don't make it a button heads with the journalists that are out there. They have a job to do. They got a story to tell. You happen to be the story at this point, and make sure that you're giving them information. You're helping them tell the story, and they will help you. Excuse me. And be interactive. Today, have a social media presence, right? I remember when social media first started coming, Facebook first started coming out. So, well, I just aged myself there. And local governments did not want anybody on social media. And so it was like all these rules and regulations were set up to not allow you to be on social media. Today it's the other way around, right? They have social media managers that come out that are actually able to share that message. The other day there was a fire in my community, and the fire department put down out on social media that there's a fire. This is where it's at, and this is what they're working on. And it was just that information is going to get out anyway. So be in front of it, create that, be interactive with the public. Lesson 10, create the crisis communication team. Put this team up, and we're going to get a little deeper here into crisis communications for a second. So have the team set, practice, right? It's kind of weird, right? It sounds odd that you should, but yeah, practice. During your EOC activations, practice with your crisis your crisis communication team as well. Create a crisis management team as well, right? So these are going to be people who already know that when something occurs that they're going to be part of this, and that's your EOC team. That's going to be your leadership in that team, and so forth and so on. Document all parts of your crisis decisions. And so this is where legally, and also in case of government being able to be reimbursed for, you need to document everything that you're doing. And that was like when I was running an emergency operations center, making sure logs are done, all phone logs are done, anything that's pertinent to, if you're making a business phone call, I don't know if you're calling your significant other and tell them that you're going to be late, but I'm talking about anything that has to do with the response. Log it down, what you said, who you spoke to, in as much detail as you can remember. And that way, when you're doing your recovery aspect of things or any legal aspects come across of it, that everything is documented accordingly. Again, amongst your staff, on lesson 12, encourage and demonstrate transparency and honesty. Everybody should be. One of the things that we tell our staff members is as far as media goes, if somebody comes up and hits you in the parking lot and asks you questions, don't just tell them no comment. Just say, hey, look, I'm not authorized to speak to you at this point, but please talk to our PIO, our public information officer. And here's their contact information. And I'm sorry, that's just what the rules are. Just be honest with them, right? If you are the person who's allowed to speak and you're just talking to your stakeholders, be open and honest and express freely, right? As much as you can. Know your limitations, lesson 13, right? You are going to feel overwhelmed, right? We're all kind of feeling overwhelmed right now with this COVID response, all right? Know your limitations. Know when you need to step back. Know when you need to take that break, right? Acknowledge them. And work within those limitations. We all have them, right? And if you know yourself, know where those limitations are, and you will be there. And again, we're going to jump back in again to a little bit of the media stuff. And I'm going to add a couple here. So I got lesson 14 and 14.5. Let's talk about the spokesperson. Talked about training already, but I want to go into it a little bit more. Have your spokesperson or spokespeople, right, if you're more than one, chosen and trained before you need one, right? Don't just tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey, I've seen you on TV before, you did a great job. Go out and do this. Doesn't work that way, right? You need to have somebody who you're working with. You need to have people that are understand media. You need to have people that are PR specialists. You might have to bring in a team. It depends on what the crisis is that you're dealing with, right? You might have to bring in a PR team. And if you have a PR team bringing in, don't hire them the day of the crisis, right? Have them on contract, and have them work with your leadership team and with your other media people that are inside your organization, so they know each other, even if they're somebody who's on contract. Again, it's the idea of don't exchange your business cards over the trunk of the car when you're standing patch to patch, right? Know who you're working with before the event occurs. And then it's sometimes wiser to make peace than to be right. And, don't get into a public spat with other, we're seeing it today, right? I was just talking earlier. Don't get into the spat with government agencies or the media. You are seeing in New York State, the governor of New York and the Sheriff's Association today and yesterday, they're going at each other regarding this Thanksgiving shutdown that they're doing. And it's really gives lack of confidence in the leadership amongst them, right? So don't have those spats. And yes, keep the politics out of it. I wish we could keep the politics out of it. As emergency managers and business continuity managers, we got to keep the politics out of it. But the politicians are going to do what they do. So I'm going to leave you with this. Learn from your crisis. Crisis is unfortunate, but it does provide excellent learning opportunities for an organization, its employees, management, its stakeholders. And when each crisis is over, do the after action report. Learn from that. I had somebody one time who we did after action report. They said they had to take some of the lessons learned out because that means that we'd have to make those changes. And I almost anyway, it's a different story. But yeah, if you have lessons learned, learn from them. If you have improvements, improve from them. So if you don't engage through post-crisis analysis, your crisis preparedness and response is never going to improve. So over the years, these principles and practices help, people stay focused, help me stay focused as I've learned them. And when faced with a crisis situation, I hope they'll prove useful to you and help you mitigate and constrain any situation that comes down the pipe. Thank you so much for being with me today. I want to wish everybody out there a happy and safe Thanksgiving weekend. Please don't eat too much. Stay healthy. Stay happy. Thank you for visiting us today. Visit Titan HST for all your communications needs. And remember, follow us on your favorite podcast player, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and join us next week. Until then, stay safe, stay hydrated. Happy Thanksgiving. Don't eat too much.